When you're so young in your career, I liked to leverage the things I knew I was really good at. And one of those was studying. I was a really good student. I think a way I had that mindset early on in my career is when Enron sunk Anderson.
Hello! This is CPA Career Paths podcast with Rosie Flaherty, CPA MSA, where we dive into thrilling journeys into the world of accounting.
Mike is Executive Director at April Firm Alliance. So, Mike, can you please introduce a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, current role, as you just said, my job on a day-to-day basis is to work with local accounting firms as my clients with the resources of a top 25 accounting firm in the country. So we can really help those local accounting firms serve their communities, the businesses and the people in those communities, because they need a local accounting firm to help serve them. So our job is to help make sure those firms can exist and be a great place to work and for those businesses to get the accounting help that they need.
When you say great place to work, can you identify what do you mean about great place?
I believe that the local accounting firms can move a lot faster to meet the demands of the employees that they have. We have a lot of generations in the workplace right now, and the workplace and what people expect out of it has evolved, especially recently. So there's not giant HR committees that have to go approve what the firm's entire remote work policy could be. You could have a great employee that moves across the country and wants to stay working with your firm, and you can. So any of those things like that you can customize someone's work experience, a local firm has a great opportunity to do that because they can treat each person as an individual because they're not trying to scale to 2,000 or 3,000 people and figure out, how do we bell curve and make sure that we're treating the most people the right way.
I think I feel the same way how you say that. That's why I moved from national firm to regional firm, because I feel like the way people treat you very different at smaller size. But when you go too small size, it will be completely different. So let's go from the beginning in your career, Mike. Why did you choose accounting when you start in college?
So interestingly, my father was a solo practitioner and I watched him work out of our house for my entire childhood. And I was always good at math, and I thought that accounting was math. So I took an accounting course in high school. I just got it. I did a 1-year-long course in about 3 months. I got to know the teacher really well. We actually built a second Accounting 2 class together the next year that they still offer as an honors class at that high school. My father actually actively persuaded me to not go into accounting, not because he didn't believe in accounting, but he said, you don't have to do what I do. And make sure that if you do it, it's because you want to. Do whatever you want. I'll support you. It's fine. Which was great. I wanted to go into accounting. But now I'm trying to do the same thing with new and young professionals as well. Try to help new accountants come into the field, help create new CPAs. Yeah, so after high school, when I took accounting classes and understood it, I decided I was going to major in accounting. Pretty much going right into college, those are the ones that I looked for. I wanted to get out of Connecticut, but I also wanted to play baseball. So I found schools that had great accounting programs and also had baseball programs. Went to visit a couple, ended up at Bryant in Rhode Island, and walked on the baseball team and played there 4 years too.
Wow, Rhode Island. I know that state. It's next to Massachusetts.
And next to Connecticut, where I am.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so exciting. It's funny that your dad asked you to not doing accounting just because he did so. So have you ever worked with him after you got a degree and then had experience in the industry?
I worked with him in high school and during college a couple summers. I learned how to do bank recs on paper, what he called quick posting, which was you get a client's year's worth of check stubs and you take 3 times that you could fold it, brown columnar pad, and you write supplies and auto and you're posting where the check should go, basically creating a GL by hand. And after I did that for 2 years, I was like, Dad, we can just buy some computer programs that'll do this for us, right? So I got him on some computer programs. And for everybody curious, this was last millennium. So the software wasn't quite where it is today. It's 25 years later.
Yeah, I could imagine. That's funny. My mom wanted me to be an accountant so I can work for her after I get my degree. So that was her original plan. And then since I got my degree and started working in my career, I never officially work for her. I did help her here and there, but never actually work for her. So that's just kind of funny story when you have family members, mom or dad actually advise you to go in accounting or tell you to not go to accounting. That's kind of funny. But after you graduate, how did you land the first job?
So the first job that I thought I had was with Arthur Andersen. it was also the year that Enron and WorldCom happened. So I had a job at Thanksgiving. It was iffy at Christmas. And by Easter, they called and rescinded the offer. And if anybody's tried to get a job in accounting graduating in the spring, it's really hard. So I ended up going through the University of Connecticut's kind of career placement program, because that's where I was going to grad school. And there was an accounting firm up near UConn. They were looking for a new staff accountant, interviewed, got a job. So I started at a 3-partner firm in Northern Connecticut, and I was the first staff accountant they hired since the second oldest partner that was there. And they hired him when he was a staff accountant, like 45 years before.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So they weren't used to training new staff. So I had to learn the way that they taught, as opposed to them trying to adapt to teach the way that I would learn. So I learned how to learn a lot at that job.
That's pretty cool. And it was impressive that you did not give it up that easily, because given the fact that they didn't have any training program, you had to adapt to their work, to their way, the way they do the job, and you had to learn everything by yourself. I feel like that's pretty impressive that you still stay with the firm and then learn what you need to learn. But what did you like the most in that job?
On a technical side, I liked that I got to see everything. As the only staff accountant, anytime a project came in, I got to do the first parts of the work. Whether it was a business valuation job, I was doing data entry for a 1040. I was, putting together the first work papers on a financial statement. I got to do a little bit of everything those first couple of years. I didn't do very much of it very well because I didn't know how to do anything. But I got to do and try a lot of things and see what it was. And after I kind of got comfortable with what I was doing, I was able to concentrate on why it mattered. And for all those local clients, like, it matters to a real person that you know. Like, Bob comes into your office and it matters to him and his family and his employees. So that really struck me early, of the impact I could have on real people that I knew in the community that I lived and worked in.
But you were so young at your career. And so meeting clients may seem to be pretty scary for a lot of young professionals when they are just new to the job and they have to communicate with the clients. How did you overcome that fear, or you just do not have that fear at all and you enjoy talking to clients?
So I didn't talk a lot at first, to be honest. And then when I did, I apparently didn't do it very well. And again, this is learning how to adapt to someone else's learning style. I got told, not always in a very constructive manner, all the things I did wrong in a meeting. And then it was like, all right, well, I want to avoid hearing that again. So I try to get better at the meeting. I try to take more notes and try to be productive and helpful and useful in the meeting. And I was talking to one of my college professors. I still remember the conversation with him. He was actually my audit professor. I was into tax, but we still got along. And I was telling him about, those stories, right, where I'm not great in the client meeting rooms. I'm getting a lot of feedback that I'm messing up. I don't really know what to do. He goes, Mike, here's the biggest thing. When you get invited into a room, even if you don't believe that you belong there, someone else does because they invited you. So if you don't believe yourself, believe them. Show up in the room.
Ooh, I like it.
So then I started trying. To me, it was being bold, right? I'm the junior accountant sitting next to a partner with one of their clients, and I'll make a connection in the conversation. I'd be like, hey, Bob, so I was doing your work and I noticed X, which correlates with what you just told Steve. Could you dive into that a little bit more? Because I didn't know what it meant. I just knew that it was connected somehow. And one time when I did that, it landed us another project. And another time it helped Bob and this save him some tax money. So acting like I was in the room and getting that advice from a college professor, someone that I knew and respected, it really helped me feel comfortable with talking the first couple times.
Yeah, I think that's the benefit of working at local firm or smaller firm, that you have a chance to communicate with the clients at the very early stage in your career. Because I believe if you work at big national or international firms, first year, second years, you have very limited opportunities to communicate with the clients, even to send an email. I think it's probably seniors or above, they start slowly let them communicate with the clients, send an email, attend a meeting. But before that, you probably never know how the client looks like, how they talk, how they communicate, because you just focus on the work. I think that's the beauty of working at a smaller firm, that you have that advantage that bigger firms would not be able to deliver that to you.
I totally agree. And even as you're sitting in those rooms, I know that I went into accounting because numbers make sense and people don't. What nobody told me was after you learn how to be an accountant for 4 or 5 years, the whole rest of your career is people. So, when you're sitting across a desk from someone and you're explaining to them the impact of the taxes and you watch their body language and you just see like blow after blow and like hit after hit. And I'm sitting there going like, dude, these are just the rules. What do you want me to do about it? Like, I don't understand why it's impacting you so much. But over time, I need to figure out a way to tell the client, like, so that they don't walk out of the meeting dejected.
That's not easy when you so young in your career and you communicate with the client when you may not have a full understanding about the big picture, what's going on in the financial statement, what's going on with in the client situation. That I know that you do have a partner next to you, but at some point you feel like I really want to speak up to talk to the client and then to show that I can do this. Do you have that feeling?
When you're so young in your career, like I liked to leverage the things I knew I was really good at. And one of those was studying. Like I was a really good student. And a lot of the people that are young in their career, early in the profession, they're really good students. Well, that means we're really good at studying. Well, guess what we have on all the clients? Lots of great data. Let me go look at the last 2 years' tax returns. Let me look at the last financial statement. Let me spend like an hour looking at the things that we do for this client before the meeting. Because the partner has a 20-year relationship with the person. And I've been here 2 years. But I have all the data. I can look at it. I might not come to any conclusions when I'm reading it, but I've read it. So I'm sitting there in the room with the client and I feel like I can talk. I feel like I have the knowledge to talk. I didn't always do it awesome. There were times where I'd look at 2 years worth of stuff and I'll make a suggestion or have a comment and a client will say, yeah, we tried that 5 years ago and it didn't work. I was like, I didn't go back far enough. But I learned, right? Like, so the next time I sent it, I was like, hey, I don't know if you've looked at this in the past at all, but here's a thought. And then they go, oh, you know what? We had that same thought 5 years ago. Their reaction's different. The first one is, you're an idiot. You didn't look back far enough. The second one is, hey, thanks for considering that we might have also already been smart enough to think about that. You're right, we did. It didn't work.
Wow. That's really a game change. Because the way you approach the clients so different that they look at you in a different ways where we both consider about this. It's not that you didn't do your homework. You did do your homework, but you want to maybe suggest this solution, that solution, and they may or may not want to do it, or they already considered in the past. Oh, wow. I really like it.
Yeah. Well, in the first one, when you're used to studying, the only information you have is in the textbook that's in front of you. And you're not really worried about delivering it to a person. So it wasn't like I was trying to tell them that they weren't smart enough. It just never crossed my mind that someone would hear it that way. So I just always took the pieces of feedback and tried to get better next time. Like, okay, how could I avoid that then? Because you don't want the client to think you think they're not smart. They're running a really successful business. Like, of course they're smart.
Yep, that's so true. I think one of the partners told me that you can always learn something from your client. Either that you can learn from how successful they are, or you can learn how unsuccessful they are.
And that there are a lot of different approaches to success. Sometimes it's monetary, sometimes it's lifestyle, sometimes it's donate money to a cause. It's always fun to get into why we're doing a particular project or working with a particular client. It just adds a little bit extra flavor to what we get to do on the project.
Yeah. So since you work at a local firm, how many years that took you to be promoted to senior and manager and going on?
So it's interesting. At the local firms, my title for about 11 straight years was accountant. It didn't change. Like whether I passed the CPA exam or anything, I was an accountant. They basically bifurcated their team into owner and accountants, not owner, and administrative staff. Those were the three things you could be. What was helpful is we weren't chasing titles. It wasn't like, okay, I put in my 2 years, I go from staff to senior. I put in 2 more, I go from senior to manager. It was, all right, what did I learn this year? What can I do next year? How do I keep moving closer to having more responsibility to running the client meetings? So instead of chasing a title, it was chasing the actions that typically go along with that title.
That's really cool. I feel like you really focus on investing in yourself instead of worrying about what's the next promotion you need to focus on. So you can have like focus on technical knowledge, focus on client relationship, That's a different way to think in your career when you try to grow yourself. It's not just about the title, it's about what you know, what you learn. I like it.
I think a way I had that mindset early on in my career is when Enron sunk Anderson, I kept paying attention because I had a vested interest in what was happening because I had to go scramble around to find a job my senior year, fourth semester while I'm trying to play baseball. It's like I was like angry, interested, and following the whole thing along. And the person who got in the most trouble and who went to jail was the accountant who made the journal entry. Not the senior executive who told her to, not the CFO, not the CEO. They have to pay some fine. The other woman went to jail for making the journal entry her boss told her to make. She was a licensed CPA, and what came out of it was, hey, your professional ethics say you have to follow professional ethics. If your boss says to do something and it's not professional ethics, your next job is to quit that job, not to do the thing your boss told you to, which was mind-boggling. But it really stuck in my head that it is my career and nobody else's, and I'm in charge of it. So to your point, I did go out and try to learn a lot of more technical things. When I messed up talking to clients and like I didn't have a great EQ or I didn't have great people skills on having a conversation, I went and found ways to go try to do that.
And it's also the learning skill as well. It's teachable that you can learn that how to deal with people, how to read people, body language. Because I literally bought a book. What's the name of the title? I forgot the book title, but it's about how to read people's body language. That if, for example, when you talk to someone and then their foot just turn in different direction, not toward you, it means they try to go somewhere else. I never paid attention before I read that book. I was like, I just need to focus on their face. That's all I need to do. I don't need to focus on their arms, on their legs, on their foot, nothing else. But as my point is that if you can learn technical skills in this profession, you can learn about behaviors, about client communication, client relationship as well. I absolutely agree that with you that a lot of CPAs, they are really good learners. Well, at least that's how they can pass the exam.
And to be honest, like I don't have a really high natural emotional quotient. I can apply a lot of other things that I've learned so that I can recognize patterns. I can learn. Will I be as great as someone who is innately attuned to an EQ? No, but I don't have to be that good. I have to know who she is. So when I need that level of skill, I can be like, hey, that's my friend Rosie. You got to go talk to her. Like she crushes this and she's way better than me. That's what you need. You always need those networks as you're going through your career too, because people have experienced different things than you have. I'm sure later on we'll get later in the career, but like I used our Leadership Academy network to get the current role that I have.
Yes, Leadership Academy, AICP Leadership Academy, talking about that. I think I had the best time ever in the profession, hanging around with all amazing CPAs in the Leadership Academy for a whole week. It was a great time. I love it. I can talk about that all day. So for the audience who are listening to this podcast, I know Mike is not the first AICPA Leadership Academy alumni I have brought in this podcast. But again, this Leadership Academy is amazing. You should check it out. It is on AICPA website. And I think they just finished one class last week, right? Last week. I think last week.
They did. 5 minutes before we started this, Rosie, my friend texted me and she said, thank you for telling me about it. I didn't know it existed. I can't believe that I just went through that. It's the best thing that has happened to me in my career. And just thank you for coaching me through it and showing me about it. And that's what you'll get out of the alumni. It's a huge sharing community. It's not hoarding. It's not, this is mine. It's not yours. It's who else can we get this to?
That's amazing. But yes, I can talk about this program all day long. It's just so amazing. But talking about this AICPA Leadership Academy, we're talking about networking as well. And I would like to discuss about networking further in your career. But back to your local firm experience, you work at this firm for about 5 years and then you moved to another firm. Why did you decide to move?
There were two primary reasons, one personal, one professional. I thought that I was going to be able to progress at the firm. And then for like 3 hires in a row, they were all above me. I was always the lowest person on the totem pole, which didn't give me anybody to delegate work to. And it always meant that I kept doing the same kind of stuff over and over. I got really efficient at it so that I could go do other stuff that was harder, but I wasn't getting challenged as much as I wanted to. And I saw them putting more people like in my way of progressing through to my ultimate goal at that time, which was to go be a partner at a local accounting firm. And at the same time, we were going to have our second child and we wanted to be a little bit closer to family. We moved to a different part of the state, and I called a friend that was in that part of the state who was at a firm. I was like, hey, I'm moving. Any roles at your firm? And she said, yeah. And then she hooked me up with those partners. I interviewed them, and that's how I got the second job.
So for the second job, what's the different? What was the different from the second job to the first job, and what's the difference in your role as well?
Primary difference is this local accounting firm did a lot of auditing. There's a lot of homeowners associations and nonprofit audits that were being done. So I came in primarily to be the tax help. The partners all knew how to do taxes, but the staff were all trained to do audits and could, like, I'll call it muddle through the taxes. They were pretty good, but they didn't have somebody with 5 years of tax experience. So I said, all right, well, I'll come in and I'll be your tax department. At that point in my career, 5 years in, like I was about that's about 10,000 hours of learning. That's about when you become an expert, according to some of those books and rules of thumb. So I thought my job was, let's see how many tax returns I could complete. And that was the primary metric that I started tracking for myself. And I beat it every year for 4 years. But that fourth year, two things happened. I got the Journal of Accountancy with an article about the first Leadership Academy class. And I had what I'll call a poor performance review. And not that my performance was poor, but the review process was poor. And it was really important to me to get a lot of feedback so I could get better. And one, it was really delayed. And then it didn't really align with what I wanted it to be.
So in just first about half an hour talking to you, I noticed that you constantly want to be better. Every single time when something come up, you like, what can I learn? How can I improve it? And who you reach out to your professor in your college to see how can you get better communication with the client. So that attitude is that something that you have it with you, or you have to train yourself to have that attitude?
It's probably something I've always had with me, but also probably something that I always didn't know I was training myself to do it when I was younger. But like we'd go on a road trip to Florida to see my grandmother from Connecticut. And yeah, this is going to be big and nerdy, but we'd stop at the 7-Eleven and I would get like 2 grades above me the multiplication book. And when it was light out, I would do the multiplication book in the car on the way down and see how many of them I get right. I'd flip to the answers and see which ones I got wrong and then do the next one. And I'd finish that one before the next rest stop, buy another one. And my mom, God bless her, because her kid wants to learn, she kept buying me these books at each rest stop. And I played a lot of baseball. And baseball is fraught with failure. You can swing and miss. You could hit a line drive at somebody and be out. You could hit a blooper and be safe. You could throw a perfect pitch and the guy hits a home run. You fail and learn all the time in baseball, on every play and every pitch. So you learn from each one. You try to get better for the next one. Put yourself in the most prepared place to be to give yourself the best shot of success. But understand there's a randomness to the world and you can be as well prepared as you want and it still might not work out.
That's interesting. I think Anoop attended our Leadership Academy. He shared that he learned a lot from his martial art. And now you mentioned about sport. Does that mean that we should encourage people to learn sport, to learn martial art, learn some physical activities, to pick up some lessons from there in real life?
I'd say so. I'd also expand it to, I think, anything that you've got to try in order to be better, like whether it's painting, playing a musical instrument, singing, acting, martial arts, a sport, any of those things, like there's a competitive element to it. And that the first time you try to play a song, and my daughter tells me this, I'm not musically inclined, like nobody expects you to play every single note correctly. Well, okay, no different than in any sport you're picking up. Nobody expected me to go hit every single baseball that they threw at me. And in martial arts, I'm sure when Anoop is training, like he trains to make his actions so seamless. It's not just you pick it up on day one. I mean, that's why there's levels of belts in martial arts, as an example. It's not why they're.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Like doing those things, it puts that discipline in you to keep trying to get better if you care about it.
I like it. If you care about it, I think that's the key. Because when you talk about this, I just want to share about cooking. I hate cooking. I hate cooking. I have no sense of cooking at all, but because I care about it. I care about cooking. I care about financial because we cannot just go out and order food all the time, go out to eat at a restaurant all the time. So because I care about it, I have to find the perfect time for me to cook and put myself in the disciplined mood all the time that I have to cook these days at this time of the day. And then I order HelloFresh to cook. So I feel like either sport, cooking, or martial arts, or anything you do, if you care about it, I think that's the key. You will learn so much or get a lot of things done.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. So talking about the second job, that after that you start working in the tax department and you stay there for about almost 7 years. And then you move to national firm. So what made you decide to move from smaller size to bigger firm at that time?
So when I went from the second to the third firm, it was another local firm that I stayed at for 7 years. That's where I actually got a job title. I was a manager, which I was really proud of because I had never managed anything in my professional life. I had been a volunteer manager at a golf tournament, and that's where I really learned what managing was, like processes, procedures, people, and they taught me a lot about it. I wasn't great at it, but they were patient. They told me what I needed to know. They told me the metrics that I had to go hit. They told me when I wasn't hitting them. And the biggest thing, we had these people consultants. They weren't accounting firm consultants. But after they worked with us for a couple of years, they sat me down one day and they're like, you're great at accounting, but we don't know who you are as a human. You answer questions the way you think we want to hear the answer. And the problem with that is while you're usually smart enough to figure out what we want to hear, we never actually get your opinion. And you are smart and we want your opinion. That's why we ask you questions. So unless you can figure out how to stop doing that, you probably won't progress anymore. And I was like, I'm not going to progress anymore. And he saw my body language and he's like, Mike, chin up. We're only asking you to be yourself. It's a simple thing to do. I know it's going to be hard because you've built up this giant wall and these masks, but all we're doing is asking you to be yourself. Like, you can do that. So that's kind of what unlocked the second part of my career, is being comfortable with who I really truly was and just saying, this is how I'm going to show up every day.
How long did it take you to get over that big wall that you built by yourself, that you feel, and then you feel comfortable to who you are to go to work every day?
It was probably between 18 months and 2 years after building up the wall for 32 or 33.
Wow.
Yeah, I was in my low 30s when they had that conversation with me. And what I take out of that now when I have conversations with people is, if I see anything like that or someone that might be a little bit stuck, I say, look, I went through a lot in my career. I want you to get there before I did. Go be a partner before I got to be a partner. Go be your true authentic self before I decided that was the best version of myself. Like, go do those things and let me know if you need any help with it, because you're awesome and you can go do awesome things.
That's interesting because literally just last week, I had a conversation with another Leadership Academy alumni talking about being yourself at work. Because I told her that I feel like whenever I go to work, I have to keep my emotions. Like, I can show my excitement. I can show that I can be a team player. But when I get like upset, angry, I have to hold to myself. I have to not showing it out and have to react professional. And then she's like, you do not have to hold it. You can express that you need to leave the meeting now because you're not feeling good. You don't have to hold that, because I think at one time I hold myself too much that after the meeting stopped or completed, oh my God, tears just came out. I couldn't breathe because I just keep holding and pushing it down. And so I feel like it's not easy to tell people that, hey, you just need to be yourself, when they always think that you at work now, you have to be professional. But yes, you can be professional, but you can also be yourself. You say 18 months and 2 years to get over that. After 30 plus years building that wall, I feel like you're doing pretty good job for that time to just destroy that wall, because people probably take a lot longer to get over it.
It could, but I had a lot of support. Like, the 3 or 4 partners at the firm all supported me. I reached out to a couple other managers that I worked with a lot, and I told them I was going through and what my goal was. And the people consultants would meet with me once a month and help me with things. And in the beginning, I would say things like, all right, I'm absolutely terrible at this. I'm going to try it. It's going to come out wrong. Can you tell me how I do? But my intent is positivity. And then I would lead my tax department meeting, for example. And then at the end, I was like, okay, you don't have to tell me now, but could you either write it on a piece of paper if you want to be anonymous, or shoot me an email and say, how close did I come? Like, did you believe me? Do you still think I'm wearing a mask? Like, or did I say something and you're like, ooh, that's not the way you should have done that. Like, any of that stuff, like, help me get better. So I actively asked for the feedback. I knew it all wasn't going to be great. So, because, I was going to swing and miss, and that was going to be okay.
I like it. Actively ask for the feedback. You don't have to wait until June or December or like annual reviews to, in order to collect feedbacks. You can just ask the feedback constantly throughout the year, because I feel like sometimes it's too late to wait until the end of the year to know how you're doing it, and you probably forget what they're talking about. That's too long ago for you to recall, like, oh, I did that. Okay, it took me some time to go over all the information, all this client data to recall this what I did and this what I need to correct. So I like your attitude. I feel like throughout this conversation, I like a lot of your attitude, a lot of great attitudes, from like learning and then now like constant asking for the feedback. I believe that these attitudes are really important for young professionals to grow in the career.
Yeah, I've mentored a couple people, and I've worked with a lot of staff accountants throughout my career, and I try to get them into my office earlier after we hire them and say, all right, here's a couple things. You're a straight A student. You're always right. The profession pushes you to always be right. People think we know everything. You're going to do a lot of things wrong. I'm just going to tell you that because you don't know how to do a lot of things. You're going to have to be comfortable with hearing you did it wrong a lot. And here's the other part of that. If we didn't think you could get better, we wouldn't bother talking to you. Like, when we're talking, it's because we care about what you're going to do next, not what you just did. That's the example, what you just did. Here's what we noticed. Here's how you can get better next time. If we stop talking to you, it's because we don't think you could do it any better and you're still doing it wrong. That's when you should worry.
That's scary. When you feel like you're not improving and you feel like people are not talking to you or giving you feedback, that's when you see that something wrong. Or when you see that people start removing you from the group, that would be a big question mark. Why do you not want me to be in your group this year when I worked in your group last year? That's something that you need to communicate. Ask why. How can you improve? Constant feedback. Yes. So after you get that manager title, you learn how to manage people. You improve the staff relationship and then delegate the jobs. And then you move to the next company is Markham, and now it's merging as CBIZ.
Yeah, so just after I made partner at Filamino, the local firm, we had a partner meeting. I think it was my first or second one. And partners go, so Mike, just want to bring you in the loop. Like, we've had a lot of conversations with this particular firm about potentially merging, and we're really considering doing it. We want to share some of the details of that with you since you're a new partner now and it could matter. I helped merge Filamino into Markham. I was a tax leader at Filamino, so I helped with all the tax due diligence on that stuff, which I hadn't really done before, but I'd done enough other of my clients that had sold their businesses. So that was pretty fun to go be part of a national firm's tax due diligence. And what they do there is they're basically doing like quality control to make sure that how you document in your work papers and your work quality is that they don't have to teach you how to do it better or differently and how well it's going to align. So that was fun. I merged into Markham just before the tax law changed too, which was great because as a tax leader, it would have been my responsibility to learn the whole thing. And that was a pretty big tax law change. And now we had a whole team of like national tax office that could do that. And I could just figure out how to use the tax law, which I found I really enjoyed. And I didn't like sitting in the code and trying to figure all this stuff out.
So how do you feel after the merge?
I went into the merger with positivity, like positive intent. I had never been part of a national firm. So I was like, it could be great. Like, never done this before. Let's see what happens. That I was going to give it my very best because that's the only way I was going to know for sure if me and national firms, or in this particular one, like fit well. But the third thing that I decided that I was absolutely going to do is I was not going to change my personal value system. I know what matters to me in the accounting profession of serving clients and being loyal to a firm and being loyal to my career, and in what order I place priority on those different things. And I wasn't going to compromise that. And I know every firm has their own culture. And the reason why I went with that stance was because I had never done this before. I want to find out fast if we're a good fit. And I'm okay with whatever the answer is. Because at that point, if I'm doing the math right on the years, it was roughly 16 years into my career, I'd be able to get a job somewhere. Like, I wasn't really worried about, like, I learned later on that concept is called unexamined fear. It's like people are like, oh no, I can't possibly like quit or get fired because like that's terrible, terrible outcome. I'm like, well, is it? Like, it was one of the thought processes I went through when somebody told me that my firm was merging. I was like, all right, well, what's the worst thing that happens? I was like, well, I don't fit. Well, what happens then? And I just kept kind of walking down, like, what if, what if? I was like, I got 400 people in my Leadership Academy alumni. It's closer to like 750 now, but back then it was 4. And I was like, I could just call them and be like, who do you know that needs to hire people? Like, I need a job. So I was like, I'm not worried. Plus, I was really involved in my state society. I could probably call 14 firms in Connecticut. I was like, I'll be fine. So let's just give it a whirl and see what happens.